I'm Carrie Adams, and you're listening to Carrie's Connoisseurs, coming to you from Solid Gold Podcasts. Here we talk to the movers and shakers, the drinkers, the dreamers, and all the people who make it happen in the liquor and luxury industries from around the world. Welcome to Carrie's Connoisseurs, and today it's a gorgeous autumn day in Johannesburg. I promised, and finally it's happened. We have put some new wines into the little Solid Gold Carrie's Connoisseurs shop. And more than just putting some new wines in, we have put some French wines in. And along with the introduction of those French wines into the shop, we're going to be doing a little series of podcasts and YouTube. What are they called, Cal? Are they called YouTube movies or what are they? I mean, help me.
Videos.
YouTube videos. Thank goodness I've got these kids around me. YouTube videos teaching you how to go about these French wines, which everybody needs to know about. So to that end, I thought I'd get an ugly old moth-eaten Frenchman into my studio just to pique your interest. Herve, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much, Lady Carrie. Always a pleasure to be chatting together.
Isn't he ugly, everybody? He's so ghastly. I thought if anything was going to get you drinking French wine, it might be my darling Herve. So thank you very, very much. Herve.
Well, you never know with AI today. It may be just an avatar. Maybe I am.
I know. You could be a blow-up doll on the other side of that screen with a very pretty face, but he's not. I can tell you, I've seen him in real life. Today he's joining us from Cape Town because he runs a business called Premier Crew and does it incredibly efficiently, largely on his own in South Africa. And he brings wines. In fact, we have lots of fun together. Swervey. I call him Swerve because Herve sounds like I'm choking on my avocado pear toast. So I call him Swerve, but you're not allowed to. That's my pet name for him. He brings wine in from not only France, all around the world. But we're going to do a little bit of background on you first. Where were you born? In the Loire?
Yes, I come from the Loire Valley in France, Lady Carrie. So it's right in the center. For those of you that can't locate it too precisely, it's just about 1.5 straight south of Paris.
And you grew
Paris, if I pronounce it better.
You grew up. The Loire is so beautiful. It's so, so pretty. I don't know how you ever left it behind, but you didn't go straight into wine. Straight from school. Tell us a little bit of background of what you did when you finished school.
Sure. So, I did my studies in the Loire Valley. So not only was I born and raised in the Loire Valley, but also did my studies there. But these were business studies. And then that led me later on to a career in consumer goods, in fast-moving consumer goods. So before being a French wine guy, I was a French candy man selling biscuits, chocolate.
We can believe that. We can believe you were a candy man. So what?
But that led me to an international career over time.
Okay. And what made you decide to leave the candy behind and follow a wine route?
So I worked 10 years for a major international company in that industry. In Paris, in Miami, and in Dubai. And pretty much what happened in Dubai was kind of a conjunction of different factors. First of all, I became the French wine guy for the regional office of his company, where one day the managing director came to me and said, we've got this high executive coming up. They love wine. You're French. You love wine. You pick the wines in the restaurants they're going to go to. Yeah. Exactly. It became part of my job. And I, took the challenge and then it went on very well. And every single time CEO, VPs, and executives were coming in, I was the one to pick the wines. I also was traveling quite a bit in South Africa and eventually was drawn to South Africa for multiple reasons too.
We're not even going to go down that route. I think that's why you're in Cape Town all the time, but we're not going to tell anybody.
You know very well the
backstories with
here.
Me,
Yeah, it's true. But yes, I fell in love with South Africa for multiple reasons. Eventually left that career in consumer goods and immediately started a career in the wine business. First of all, for a big international winery called Concha y Toro, which is a big Chilean winery. And I was looking after markets in the Middle East and Africa for them, based out of Cape Town. And then after a few years, decided to be a wine entrepreneur and studied Premier Cru and moved to Johannesburg.
I knew that you were the French wine guy because everybody says, who's that French wine guy? You actually don't have a name. Your name is the French wine guy, I think. And
as you see, my name can be pronounced in so many ways.
Yes.
So French wine guy becomes a lot easier.
A lot easier. So that's cleared up that little bit. And then I knew that you'd worked for Concertoro, which is one of my... I want a business like Concertoro. It's just such a massive success story in the world of wine. They produce, and you can tell us, but they produce hundreds of thousands of bottles of wine every year. And they're incredible. They start from quite inexpensive and go up to some really, really smart wine. But I didn't realize that you worked for them here in South Africa. I thought that you'd worked for them when you were in America or when you were in Dubai or somewhere. I didn't realize it was from here.
No, I mean, there was a tiny office. Well, but tiny, we're talking about 3 people based out of Cape Town for Africa and Middle East. And eventually I joined that office.
For anybody who knows, who remembers at Norman Goodfellows, I always, if I could, I used to stock the Casillera del Diablo range, which is really the only one that we mostly got in South Africa, which was unbelievable value for money. In those days, at under 100 Rand a bottle for a Malbec or I think they had a Pinot Noir, a Cabernet, a Merlot, they had a Chardonnay. It was really good value for money. So is it no longer available in South Africa?
It still is available in South Africa, but it is at a very small scale, especially a very small scale as opposed to whatever the production of a company worldwide. I mean, Concertoro is a company that exports 1/3 of the Chilean exports.
Is that so?
Yes, that's as massive.
That's why we want that company, Swervy. That's what we want. Anyway, I first met Herve when he came up to Johannesburg, and Sully Kramer, who was my partner at Norman Goodfellows, he said to me, I've met this French wine guy. And long story short, we went into a bit of a sort of a joint venture with Herve in a business called Premier Cru, which is doing incredibly well, thanks to you. You've done an amazing job of that business. And I just thought it would be really nice to put some of the offerings that you have within Premier Cru into my little podcast shop. And with an emphasis on Mother's Day, which is coming up on the 14th, I think it's the 14th, is it? Of May.
But the Sunday, the 14th of May, yes.
Yeah. So we've got some time to go shopping. And we're going to tell you what to buy. I suggested maybe the Arrogant Frog, which there's a nice story behind, which Herve can tell you about. And then, of course, both of us love Chablis. I'm a complete and utter Chablisite. If there was a grape that we could pray to, it would be Chardonnay. And Chablis is Chardonnay. So we're going to tell you about that. So, Herve, you start off. Tell them what you'd like. You start talking. It's your show.
Yes, well, thank you very much. First of all, it is your show, and I'm very happy to be a guest. So thank you for having me once again. And well, just to give you a broad idea of the selections that we've taken together, that you uploaded into the shop. And what we do at Premier Cru is also we want to accompany people on their discovery journey. For me, wine is about journey, it's about people, it's about moments. And is there something that I took over from consumer goods? Is always to start and finish with the consumer. Now, when it comes to wine, we also associate very closely with the terroir, the origin. And so the idea is to match consumer and origin and terroir together. So that's why I'll always say, we're all on a discovery journey when it comes to wines. There's, hundreds of thousands of amazing wines, and the idea is let's walk step by step. Let's appreciate them for their differences. And I always say the only truth is everybody's palate, everybody's taste bud. And you can only know that, one taste at a time by discovering, by trying out.
100%.
So that's what we're trying to do.
So we're gonna try. Maybe we'll start with the Arrogant Frog first, because it's a really, really reasonably priced wine from France. And I think a lot of South African customers are a little bit intimidated when it comes to buying French, because the French you're also difficult and obsequious. You don't put on the grape You don't put on the bottle what grape is in there. But I think you do on the Arrogant Frog, don't you? Which makes it so
We
much
do.
easier.
So the Arrogant Frog is a perfect introduction, really. It's a great value wine. It has a quirky story, a quirky label. It comes from a producer called Paul Mas, which is in the southern France, in an area called the Languedoc-Roussillon, which sometimes I refer to as the Swartland of France, in a way. That's an area that produces quite good quantities of wine, but hasn't been as prestigious as other areas such as Bourgogne, where Chablis comes from, Bordeaux or Champagne. They tend to label as well a bit more in the varietal. And with obviously the threat of starting into French wine is the pretension of it, as you mentioned it. And as a play, obviously he calls himself the humble winemaker. And he started this range, the Arrogant Frog, just to turn that around so that, to make it more approachable.
It's a bit of satire, yes, yeah.
Exactly.
It's a gorgeous label. It's a
Mm.
frog, and he's got a sort of a French beret, and he looks like quite a noble frog, really, doesn't he, on that label? He's got
Also this gentleman, Jean-Claude Mas, which is the new runner of this company, he calls himself looking after rural luxury. And I think this little frog with a beret embodies rural luxury in that regard.
And I love that, because Carrie's Connoisseurs likes to embrace honest luxury. I think we're all entitled to indulge in a little bit of luxury every now and again. And without wishing to be too overt, because I can't stand all this blingy, overt stuff that's going on at the moment. There's a time and a place for it, I suppose. But I think we really are all entitled to a little bit of luxury every now and again. And French wines, for me, are a luxury. They're beautiful. And these two little wines, so the white is a Chardonnay, is it? Or is it a Chardonnay Viognier blend?
It's a Chardonnay Viognier. Well, technically it's 90% Chardonnay, 10% Viognier. So it is a blend, but just with a dash enough of Viognier to have these beautiful floral, peachy aromas that entice you from the first smell. So that's for the white
So
wine.
when our customers take their first sip, what are they going to taste?
So peach, apricot would be dominant fruit profile that come out of the Viognier. It's going to have beautiful white blossom floral component coming to it, but it's a very gentle, very lightly wooded type of wine. So it's not a really overwhelming type of Chardonnay, but very gentle, soft, fruity, and delicate.
And the white is so pretty. It's pretty. And I'm still old-fashioned enough and obsequious enough myself to say that I think it's very feminine. It is a very feminine wine. So that is the white Arrogant Frog. They're line priced, aren't they? The white and the red are the same price.
They are the same price. Yeah, the idea is to obviously have an introductory price point. The red is a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, 55%, 45%, and again, very soft, silky, gentle, easy to drink, and fruity style. In short, what I say for these wines, and actually that's a catchphrase that I coined and eventually I shared it with the producer themselves. I say it's arrogant but not pretentious. And that's a perfect way to discover them.
That's true. It's not pretentious. I think it's the perfect entry level. Swerve, what is our pricing roughly? It's 100 and something rand a bottle, isn't it?
140 rand a bottle.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't really buy many decent South African wines at that price. So for me, it's a little bit of a no-brainer. If you pop online, you'll find that Arrogant Frog, red and white, in the Carrie's Connoisseurs shop, and just give it a try. It's a talking point on your Mother's Day lunch table, and it's a fabulous entry into the French wine that we really do love. We'll move on from there, and I think we'll keep Chablis for last. Let's take them on a quick little taste explosion down the Vouvray Road. Let's go down Vouvray Road.
Well, now you're appealing to my origins in that regard, because Vouvray is one of the origins from where I came from, just about 40 kilometers away. Vouvray is a village, and here, when we talk about all these names that can be confusing for some of the clients, it's what we call the appellation system. Just to introduce it very briefly, imagine, the whole appellation system is like a pyramid. At the bottom of the pyramid, the wine can come from anywhere in France, and that's what we would say is a vin de France, anywhere in France, a French wine, pretty much. One step up from the pyramid, it comes from any region, and then it's the name of a region. So it could be Bourgogne, Burgundy, it could be Bordeaux, it could be Champagne as a region themselves. As you go one step further, you have the name of the villages. So Chablis being a village in particular, or Vouvray being a village as well, and they come associated with particular grape varieties, cultivars that they specialized on over centuries. And as you go to the very top of the pyramid, you start talking about vineyards. And these vineyards can be classified as well between Premier Cru or Grand Cru. So Vouvray is a village in the Loire Valley, which only produces Chenin Blanc. And is one of the origins and birthplace of Chenin Blanc, but in a very different style to the Chenin Blanc that we know in South Africa. In the overall spectrum, there's really two countries that produce Chenin Blanc essentially, which are South Africa, for a large majority, and France and the Loire Valley in particular. But in South Africa, we do know fantastic examples of Chenin Blanc that tend to be more wooded types of Chenin Blanc. In the Loire Valley, we tend to have unwooded. And that also is, embodies what we do. We always want to showcase the differences. We love South African wines, and the idea is, as we go on that discovery and that exploration, is to help understanding the differences. Why are these wines different? Why is it unwooded Chenin Blanc, cooler climate, the terroir, the soil? So that's what we really want to discover, different profiles. And so Vouvray is unwooded Chenin Blanc, and that comes from very limestone soils, which is also quite scarce in South Africa, but that will give a very distinctive profile. So the cooler climate and the limestone soil give a bit more of a zesty, white peach, fresh profile for Vouvray, with a nice tanginess coming around from that limestone and minerality.
I know, it's gorgeous. It's almost quite easy to give our listeners an idea. It's almost quite easy for me to sometimes confuse Vouvray with, or the French Chenin Blanc with Chardonnays, because I love that citrusy zestiness on a Chardonnay grape, and I often pick up a citrusy zestiness. Having said that, though, if you buy Vouvray and you allow it to lie in your cellar for a couple of years and just mature a little bit and grow up and become a real boy Pinocchio, it becomes appley and honeyed and viscous and absolutely gorgeous. And I've tasted some Vouvrays that are like 40, 50 years old, and they are just as gorgeous as they were the day they were. In fact, they're much more gorgeous than they were the day they made. It has a propensity to age, doesn't it?
These white wines, they do. These white wines really age gracefully. That minerality that we're talking about acts as a complexity that will just keeps on getting rounder, softer, and develop layers of complexity over time. So these are definitely white wines that you can age for a very long time.
You can. And did I mention the word appley? Because some of them become quite, and I hesitate to say quite like old warm baked apples, because I love baked apples. But that can sound like a derogatory remark. But they do become almost Calvados-ish. Do you know what I mean? Some of those old French Chenin Blancs, they can taste like Calvados. They're beautiful. So that's Vouvray. And we have put a Vouvray into the shop. Tell them about it.
So, yes, it comes from a small estate called the Domaine de Margalot, which is family-run, 4th generation, cultivating under organic farming. So a very sustainable approach to express their terroir to the best. And this one is only aged for about 6 months, but in tanks. So just to let it soften, to let it get a little bit rounder. So we are on the 2021 vintage, which is perfectly ready to drink now for the zesty, citrusy profile. But this is an estate that we've worked since the 2016 vintage. And recently I stumbled upon an example of a 2016 vintage that was drinking wonderfully in that roundness, in that elegance integration that we discussed.
And again,
so, beautiful example.
we're speaking about a wine under 200 Rand a bottle, hey?
Just a little bit over at 225 Rand.
Is it 225? I thought it was under. Yeah. It's still not a lot of money when you consider the bang for your buck that you're going to find inside that bottle. It's really, I love it. It's one of my favorite wines in your portfolio. Unbelievably priced and really delicious. What are we going to eat with that Vouvray? Give us an idea of what they should be. If they buy Vouvray for Mother's Day lunch, should they give it to their mother with omelets for breakfast? Or should they give it to their mother with chickens for lunch? Tell us.
So this is a very versatile grape variety at some extent. So, I mean, when it comes to breakfast, I'm very partial to champagne myself.
Me too.
I think every day should start with champagne as much as feasible. But here, I mean, this is a wine that you can have with, white poultry as much as you can, but also, with fresh, elegant salads you would enjoy. But also, what is typical for us in the Loire Valley is we have a lot of goat cheese.
Oh,
and this goat cheese goes wonderfully well with this wine.
That's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that. So goat cheese salad might be quite nice with a glass of Vouvray. I have got some of that Vouvray in my own cellar at home, and I had a bottle of it with a roast shoulder of pork one Sunday, because the people that I had for lunch don't drink red wine. And we drank that Vouvray with roast pork and crackling in it and apple sauces. It was gorgeous. It was absolutely delicious. And it had enough texture in the mouth to deal with something heavy like meat. It was fabulous. So as you say, very versatile wine.
Yeah. And the beauty of wines coming from what we call the old world of wine, particularly European wines, not only French, but Italian, Spanish, German, is these wines have been calibrated over centuries with the regional food. And that's why they actually are made to be, enjoyed as part of gastronomy, as part of a meal. So.
And then, Swerve, while we're talking about vinification and making of the wine, I think South Africa is catching up a lot now with organic farming practices and what have you. But France has been doing that for a very long time, haven't you?
Correct, yes. I think in the world of organic wines, there's two pioneer countries, which are Spain and France, and that have the highest proportions of organic vineyards. It's still growing significantly. I think it's just short of 10% of organic vineyards, but South Africa is less than 1% in that regard. So South Africa is catching up. But the beauty of organic wines is obviously, wine is a natural product. So if you want the best expression, you want the healthiest grapes, and with the best grapes, you make the best wines.
Yeah.
So that tends to be this integrated,
and
simple but harder in practice.
Yeah, and we mustn't confuse organic wine with what we know as certified organic wine in South Africa, where they've got to go through an incredible process to get this organic certification. I think it's pretty much just standard practice in France that you farm organically. You don't use toxic sort of insecticides or sprays of any description. You use organic mulches and fertilizers and what have you. It's just taken as read. South Africa, there's a big, I don't know if it's the same in France, massive process that you have to go through, which is quite expensive, which is why a lot of the farmers here are shying away from being certified organic, but they are actually using organic farming practices. So that also means that there's less additives and chemicals and shitty bits that they put in the wine that make you feel a little bit worse the next day, don't they?
That is correct. And it starts with a belief as well. And you're right, the certification can be very demanding for some of the producers. The producer of Vouvray is a good example. They believe in organic farming, but they don't pursue the certification per se, because, they do it for themselves and the well-being of their land, of their vineyards, rather than only pursuing an additional tag on the bottle. So it comes just with the balance of nature, and wine is anything but very closely associated to the balance of nature. So,
Yeah,
but
it's
very
just the clever thing to
appreciated.
do, really. So we are going to have some Domaine de Maguelot Vouvray. I am definitely going to have some of that on Mother's Day, even though the only person who's going to drink it with me, I think, is my dog, because my child is not living in South Africa, so I'm going to have to drink it with my dog, Swerve. Unless you come to my house for Mother's Day lunch.
It would be a pleasure to
If
see
you're
you
not
there.
in Cape Town, Swerve, you swerve. We'll check. Herve, Chablis, talk to us. Love of my life. I love Chardonnay. Chablis, just to give everybody an idea, is right up in the top. It's the sort of northernmost district of Burgundy, isn't it? Chablis.
Correct, yes. So if you look at the map, Chablis is quite a separate area to the rest of Burgundy. Chablis is such a fantastic name. So Chablis is the name of a village of Chablis. It's pretty much halfway between the heart of Burgundy, Paris, Champagne, and the Loire Valley. So if you kind of draw a square, it ends up right in the middle of a square.
Yeah.
And I mean, just the name itself is so recognizable nowadays.
Well, I was thinking that if you do ever get married and have a little girl or a little boy, I think we're going to call it Chablis. I'm going to insist that you call it Chablis. I caught Herve
Could be a
the
good
other
name for
day.
a dog as well, too.
A dog's much less trouble than a child. But I caught Herve the other day. I think, where did I find you? Were you in France? I think I phoned you in France. And I said to him something about, where are you? What are you doing? Where are you going? And he said, are you going to Andalusia? And I thought he said he was on holiday with a girl called Andalusia. So I forgot to ask you when we started chatting that, did you have a nice holiday with Andalusia?
Well, it was more of a discovery trip as well. And I mean, we've extended outside of French wine into Italian wine, Spanish wine. And Andalusia was lovely. Thank you very much.
I'm pleased to hear it. So back to Chablis. Talk.
So back to Chablis. So it's also a name that, resonates with the grape variety itself.
Yes.
Chablis is a village that only produces essentially Chardonnay. And again, it's a very different style. So what I also love about Chablis is this is a style that we don't replicate in South Africa because of what I mentioned, the terroir. Chablis is cooler climate. Chablis has what we call Kimmeridgian soils, which are limestone seashell fossils rich soils. And they have had a history of perfecting the art of his wine for so many centuries, initiated by the monks of Burgundy in the first place. But Chablis, Chardonnay is the easier comparison, and
Yeah, they
essentially
both start with a
unwooded
sha.
Chardonnay. Exactly, Chacha.
Yeah.
Right.
Both start with a sha. It's easy to remember. It's part of our French training of all of you, actually, in case you didn't notice. So Chablis is getting quite a lot further up the pyramid, isn't it? Because it's certainly not just Vin de France, and it's certainly not just it's got its own little village of Chablis.
Precisely.
So it is quite smart. But the only time you ever see Chablis on a bottle, you can know that it's Chardonnay that you're buying. There's nothing else in that bottle of Chablis. Only Chardonnay. And I don't know if it's still like that, but when I was studying, it was pretty much taken as read that Chablis was unoaked. There's one or two Chablis that they put into a little bit of oak. Excuse me. I don't know why my phone's doing that. Sorry, Callum. I'm going to get in trouble. I've got such a strict sound engineer. You've got no idea. When we get off here, I'm in trouble. Sorry, darling. You're not going to find any of those Chardonnays that are big, buttery, creamy, oaky, sort of, dare I say, clumsy Chardonnays. Not that the oaky ones in France, or a lot of them from the rest of the world, are clumsy, but you can get clumsy wood on Chardonnay. These are flinty and pure and clean and bright and, dare I say, almost a bit maritime.
That comes from that soil, these seashell fossils that are embedded in the stones, in the limestone, is where Chablis grows. So if you walk through these vineyards, you may actually end up picking up stones that still have shellfish embedded into them, and that's why you've got shellfish being such an icon, and a lot of
Yeah.
producers usually can be using them as a symbol in Chablis. But also when it comes to food pairing, what Chablis works wonderfully well with seafood in the same breath. It all becomes all integrated, all balanced together.
Can you imagine a beautiful summer's day in Chablis, one of those little restaurants in that village, with an icy cold bottle of Chablis and a plate with a big crayfish or crab salad or or a plate of oysters, even better. Oysters and Chablis, marriage made in heaven. That's an idea for Mother's Day lunch.
Precisely. That is, as you mentioned, the perfect pairing.
It is the perfect pairing. I just remembered it now. Chablis and oysters. Then, Swerve, is there anything else that they need to know about Chablis that's going to remind them of it, going to make them want to try it? We know that it's clean. We know that it's bright. We know that it's mineral. We know that it's almost got the...
What I do love Chablis is really for its distinctiveness. It's really for the difference. And it's really a profile of Chardonnay that is only found in this particular village. And that's why it's being so renowned. So when we talk about the discoveries, I mean, to me, no other Chardonnay has the similar expression. And that's why it is so sought after. It's so highly specialized. And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of wine, is when we talk about South African Chardonnay versus Chablis, these are two completely different styles of Chardonnay. And that's, perfectly good reason to enjoy both of them in very different manners, in very different moments. And yeah, Chablis is, for a very good reason, one of the most prestigious appellations when it comes to France.
It's also part of Burgundy, which is one of our favorite regions of French wine growing region. And Burgundy has Chardonnay comes in white and Pinot Noir comes in red. And we'll get on to Pinot Noirs in another podcast that we do. But to give you all an idea of what Herve is speaking about, that puts it into layman's terms, if you have very acidic soil in your garden and you plant hydrangeas, if you give them lots of acid and you add acid to the soil and you change the soil balance, those hydrangeas are going to come out very deep, dark purple and dark red and dark magenta in color. If they have less acid, they'll be light blue and they'll be white and they'll be going to pale pink and what have you. So there's a soil in Chablis called Kimmeridge. Tell them about it. Kimmeridge is largely the soil type in Chablis. And I think it's because of that soil. It's Kimmeridge clay and it's mixed with chalk. And I think that balance of chalk and Kimmeridge, just gives us those flavors. It has a massive effect on how the wine tastes.
Correct. And this is very unique type of soil itself. This Kimmeridgian soil is clay limestone. And the beauty here as well is with the limestone you mentioned. Limestone has very high pH, for instance, as a soil itself. We have a scarcity of limestone here in South Africa, except for a little bit in Robertson.
I was going to say, Donnie de Wet's got some, which is why he makes such delicious Chardonnays at de Wetshof. We love Donnie de Wet's Chardonnay. It's because of that limestone.
Correct. But limestone is also a beautiful ability when it comes to water retention. It really acts like a sponge, so it absorbs all the excess water, but it only trickles it just a tiny bit, enough to the vines. So, I mean, one of the core differences, let's say, between Robertson and Chablis would be the climate. It's a lot warmer and drier in Robertson, while it's a lot colder and more semi-maritime climate in Chablis. So two very different adaptations to the limestone, two different profiles. So it's going to be more zesty, more citrusy in the expression of Chablis, but that flintiness, chalky profile is going to be distinctive and unique.
Let's tell them about the Chablis that we've put into the solid gold shop.
Yeah, so we actually put three different Chablis, three different expressions on the village level. And the idea was to continue assist in that discovery. We have one which is called Grand Calcaire, which means the Great Limestone, per se. And this one is coming from a cool area in Chablis to enhance that fleetiness, that zesty, flinty profile. So that's one of the first expressions of Chablis. So if you're really looking for that flinty, textbook flintiness, you can go for the Grand Calcaire, the Great Limestone. If you're looking for a Chablis that would be deeper, riper, you would have a Domaine de la Motte vieille vigne, which is made from vines that are at least 50-year-old. And here you have a lot more fruit intensity, very long-lived type of profile. And the last one would be Albert Bichot, which is a Chablis that would be a lot softer, a lot rounder, gentler and more elegant as well. So 3 different expressions on the same level.
And they're three, I can't imagine anybody who follows me or listens to any of the nonsense that I speak or any of my advice. I can't imagine any of them tasting Chablis and not liking it. I highly recommend a bottle. Buy one that suits your budget. It's tough out there at the moment. I know wines are expensive, but we specifically put affordable French wines into the shop as a starter because this is our horrible, nasty, fiendish trick to trap you in that French trap. Because once you're in that French trap, every time you feel like being a little bit indulgent and a teensy bit luxurious, you're gonna choose French. The last thing I want you to talk about, which I didn't talk about in our newsletter, which I hope everybody subscribes to actually, because it does help you make decisions like this. But Herve's got some gorgeous champagne. And champagne, of course, is made from Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, those same old Burgundian grapes, but they come from a different region. Give them a recommendation of what champagne should they do for mother on Mother's Day.
Oh, well, I mean, we do have quite an extensive collection of champagne now. What we do, I mean, as we keep on enhancing a difference here, is we have a selection of more boutique and exclusive houses. So they wouldn't be, the run-of-the-mill commercial houses. So
No.
they always would express a different take. So, and right now we do have particular houses that have gained great recognition with Duval-Leroy or De Venoge recently. So Duval-Leroy just got voted best champagne in show at Mundus Vini Awards,
Oh,
which
did
is
it?
happening in Germany.
That's
Yes.
fantastic. It is
And
gorgeous.
De Venoge garnered the Champagne Master as well for best champagne in show at the Champagne Masters recently.
Do you know, I think
So,
I'm
two
correct
great
in
houses.
saying that at some stage, De Venoge, I think, was the house champagne at Harrods in England when I was living in the UK. And that's where I first tasted De Venoge. And it really is just sublime. So why not start your Mother's Day off with a big ice bucket on the side of the bath? Let her have a bubble bath with a bottle of De Venoge or a bottle of, I shouldn't be saying Philippinat, should I? Because I don't think there's stock.
Stock is a bit scarce on Filipona, but we're getting more stock, but unfortunately just after Mother's Day. The stock will end
I
just
was
a
going to
little
say,
bit
if
after.
you really
Yeah.
wanted to spoil your mother, buy her a bottle of that. It's sublime. It's got a million billion teensy weensy soft little bubbles that pop in your mouth. It's so gorgeous. But the others are gorgeous. So any of the champagnes on the Premier Cru page, in the shop, buy some. Just buy some for Mother's Day. Spoil that special person in your life. And I hope that you have enjoyed the little journey that we've taken you on. We've got such a long journey that we can take them on, haven't we? There's so many places we
correct,
can
yes.
take everyone to.
Yeah. We can travel without moving across France, across Europe, across the New World as well.
Yeah,
That's why
because
there's
you've got
a
some
lot of small
stuff.
trips you can do
We've got
together.
stuff from New Zealand. We've got stuff from Italy. We've got stuff from... Have we got Portuguese stuff yet?
Not yet. I'm still working on it.
Okay. You should have done that while
That's the
you were
next priority.
on holiday with Andalusia.
Well, we've got Spanish wines. There you go.
Of course we have. Master Herve, it's such a pleasure always talking to you. Thank you for making time. I know you're busy in Cape Town. Thank you for taking time out to talk to me. And we'll put all the links and the clicks. Callum and Shannon will do all of that for us. And have another listen to the podcast and remind yourself of which one you want. And don't only do it for Mother's Day, but Mother's Day is a really good excuse to spoil yourselves. Thank you so much for being with me.
It's only a pleasure, Carrie, and I look forward of accompanying everybody's journey on the discovery of international wines.
So do we. Thank you, my darling. Bye.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
Another production from Solid Gold Podcasts.